Yeah, so anyways, all us bad parents out there who have
That's you and me.
yeah, who have jobs, and Colleen volunteers 3 days a week, and plus she runs PAC, the Parents of Apprehended Children. She's a facilitator for that, and she's been doing that for free for the last, well, over a year now. And
No, just a year.
just a year, okay. And but you know, we've been funding this by ourselves, and it's probably about time that we started receiving funding so that we could continue on.
We'd like to travel eventually and be able to set up little pack groups all over the place.
Yeah.
And make it so that, you know, people...
We know there are parents out there that need the help. They just don't know about us.
And we need their help too, because the more information that we have, the better we can advocate for everybody.
Yeah, and we would probably benefit greatly if we had a lawyer who could represent some of these people on...
Of course we'd benefit, all of us would benefit greatly from having a good lawyer that helped us.
Yeah. But I mean, it should be a lawyer that really knows what's going on and really wants to do something about it. You know, but the more people that we got together, you know, I mean, if we had 1,000 people or 10,000 people, you know, across the country working together, and we're all working towards the same goal, which is to bring our children home. You know, this has gone on long enough. I mean, we're not in the dark ages anymore. We know what fear is all about. You know, when something bad goes on down in the United States, like a woman throws her kids into a lake, it sends ripples across the country, you know, and across our border. And of course now social workers have real reasons to protect children, you know, because one woman went psychotic and did that, you know, or two women went psychotic, but there are hundreds and millions of people who are actually living, you know, quite well.
But what about also, like what you're saying, but also the fact that, you know, we do need a child protection system. We do need something, but the one we have now, say you see, you know, you could have, you know, two mothers living side by side. One of them could be very neglectful and be going through such severe problems of her own that maybe she's even abusing her child. That one gets overlooked, and the mother next door to that, you know, who maybe even made the original complaint, becomes their focus, meaning they're spending all this time and energy on a family that just maybe needs a little support, maybe doesn't need a little support, but there they are picking apart their lives while these children over here are still being so terribly neglected. And everybody has seen a situation like that. Yeah. And that's what we have to put a stop. That's why so many children are dying, you know, in the care of the ministry. They're taking the wrong kids. Those kids end up suicidal or drugged up when they were fine.
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Just a total example that we heard last night of a young girl, you know, telling the psychologist over and over again, no, I have not been abused. No one has sexually abused me. And when they did the pelvic exam, which is a great violation of a 14-year-old girl who's saying she's never been sexually assaulted, when they did that, they called it inconclusive because they didn't find any signs of assault.
And it was supposed to be ritualistic, okay? They were ritualistic abuse over a long period.
But there was no
signs of anything.
But instead of writing there was no apparent signs of abuse, it was the testing was inconclusive. Meanwhile, they've violated this young girl who has said many times over
that there was no sexual assault. Yeah.
But of course children may lie about that type of thing, but not always.
But the psychologist, okay, now we read the reports. Now this is very interesting as well. The psychologist who's supposed to have, you know, a biased view or non-biased view
from the Ministry of Children and Families.
We saw the reports. The social workers wrote all these horrible things and all these things about the parents and gave it to the psychologist so that they could be aware of what this child's gone through. Now, this is
everything that the ministry had provided the psychologist with, the child was denying, saying, no, this never happened to me, you know, and begging him to believe her.
And then so when the psychologist wrote his report, it wasn't based on the psychological damage of the child because there was none, okay? So he wrote a report parroting what the social worker had told him.
We've seen in our own case where, you know, my ex-husband goes into the police station and makes a complaint about me, says all this stuff, and then the ministry tried to use it as a police report that verified their information. No, that was my ex-husband's words, not the police officer's findings.
Yeah, the police officer just said I had to write that because he was coming in to make a complaint. And that doesn't make it true. The officer said, I just had to write that. He said, that's not my words. Those are the words of her ex-husband.
But this is the same with psychological reports that we've been finding, people have been giving us to read as well, is that the psychologist, in the background information, well, it's alleged that blah, 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 blah. So based on this, we feel that the child this. Well, how do you know that this is true when the ministry hasn't provided any proof of it? The ministry has to start providing proof of every allegation that they make against a person.
Now, we want to tell you something. Now, after 4 years, they've tried to say that I'm mentally unstable, schizophrenic, this, that, and the other thing. I've passed the test. I've been working since I was 16 years old. I'm 44 now. I've had a full-time job my whole life.
3 psychological evaluations, and not one of them said anything negative about him, but the ministry said that those evaluations didn't count because they were mini evaluations.
That's right, right.
Even though they were maybe days or weeks long.
So we received a mini risk assessment report about that big, and again, everything was triplicate and quadruply repeated over and over and over. But there was one thing in there. It said when Alvin and Colleen are on their meds and are going to their psychiatric programs, they seem to be fine.
But we've never been. So we got a letter from the doctor stating, they've never been on any psychiatric program. Colleen's never seen a psychiatrist before. I took that to court and the judge refused to look at it, yet she looked at what the ministry had to say, but not at what I had to say.
Perfect example of what you're going to go through, okay? Perfect example.
I think that's enough for today. It's making me angry.
Me too.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.